Our students are the future. How we advance innovation and impact and approach equity in their classrooms will determine how we thrive as a world community. The status quo just won't cut it. That's why we're here to break the grade. Hello, breakers and difference makers. I'm Josh Chernikoff, host of How I Broke That. I'm a two-time entrepreneur in the education space, and I've successfully exited both of those companies. I've experienced my fair share of breaks in my life, and I'm here to bring my signature approach to my new show, Breaking the Grade. I'm embarking on this special journey alongside my good friend and mentor, John Gamba, Director of Innovative Programs and Entrepreneur in Residence at Penn GSE. In our podcast, you'll hear from emerging business owners in the education space who are working to transform education as we know it. Tune in as we hear about industry trends, unique principles and practices, and the attempts that have and haven't worked for our grade-breaking guests. So fellow entrepreneurs and educators, what do you think? Are you ready to take a hammer to the education space and break the grade? Welcome to Breaking the Grade. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Breaking the Grade Live. I am joined by my friend Wayne, my client Wayne, who we become such fast friends that I never asked him how to pronounce his last name. And I did that about 30 seconds ago, and I didn't get the answer I expected. But Wayne, why don't you introduce yourself and you tell us what's your last name?
Thanks, Josh. And I agree with that. The fast friends. It's been a fun journey that both of us have been on. So for everybody out there, I'm Wayne Bovier. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Digital. I founded the company about 8.5 years ago, and we focus strictly on higher education, and specifically helping higher education institutions, cabinets, boards, CIOs in particular, transform into a more digitally strategic, execution kind of oriented organization and enterprise.
Gotcha.
So happy thrilled to be on here with you.
Yeah, no, Wayne, cool. I appreciate you coming on, and you're the perfect guest for the subject that we have today, which we're talking about the signature solution. And the Ed Sales Elevation Experience, we have worked with give or take 163 companies in the education space. And we've all worked through the signature solution. The signature solution is the solution when your prospects hesitate, when your pipeline stalls, and when deals slip away. If you have a signature solution, you will have less of those things happening in your pipeline. A signature solution makes sure that your offer isn't fuzzy, that your offer is defined, and it's what makes the buyer say yes or no, not right now, on the spot. And the reason I brought Wayne on is because he's a current client. He's a member of our cohort. And I've really never seen somebody get so kicked in the face by the signature solution and then return the punch so fast. And Wayne did that. So Wayne, why don't you first kind of tell us about the punch that you took and then the punch that you gave in terms of the signature solution, all in the matter of about 2 or 3 weeks.
And thank you. May I have another? I've been kicked in the face, but I got up more energized and more focused. I think it's important to kind of start with a little bit of context. Over the course of the 8.5 years, as a company, people try to fit you in a box. Like, are you a consulting company or your software company? And the reality is we're a little bit of both, or a lot of both, or a lot of one and a little bit of the other. But we've been focusing on one of higher education's hardest problems, and that is how to institutions, districts, systems actually change in the face of shrinking budgets, rising expectations, and siloed systems. That's been our mission from day one. And as you could probably imagine, we've been trying to sell a variety of services over the course of that 8.5 years. And we've really struggled to articulate it in a simple, cohesive way. And we've been successful, throughout the 8.5 years. But what I've realized with your approach in the signature solution is really, for the first time, we have a framework that best articulates in simple visual terms, right? Because the piece that I love, like, is we can use words, but I'm a visual guy anyway. I know not everybody's like me, but I like to see in simple pictures. I like to be able to digest how you can go from, a reality of, complicated, lower budgets to one where, as a CIO or an institution, you're really driving results and really helping the institution change how they approach technology. And so we now have, I think, a draft. Now, we haven't, just so everybody listening in here, we have not publicly launched it yet. I've gone through internally. It takes a lot of, fearlessness, right? As you're building this, right? You're going to take some lumps. It's going to be frustrating, but I think I've interviewed roughly 7 to 8 perfect clients. Some of them are friends, some of them are acquaintances. All of them are ones that I trust will give me very direct feedback. And so I've been working through this, and with each interview and each conversation, going through our draft signature solution, which I'll give a preview. It's called the Operational Advantage for Education, which we're really excited about. It's been really encouraging to get to that, and it's resonating. It's resonating with leaders, executive leaders who know they need to change, but they're not clear how best to execute on it.
When it resonates, what I can see from the outside looking in is that you are more confident, that you are more clear. And one of the other wonderful benefits, because you have bought into LinkedIn, is that you are overflowing with content ideas, because your signature solution is the journey that your client goes on from confusion to clarity on the biggest challenge you could solve. And within that, there are endless amounts of stories and frameworks and case studies for you to tell. Can you talk about what has happened since you birthed this signature solution, and how much work do you think you still have? Because I can tell you
that's a great question
to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So birthing, we haven't hit the 9 months yet. That should be in about 2 weeks. That we're going to be, we'll have our new child out in the wild. But I will tell you internally what it has done. Right. I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but I'll come back to it. Well, I'm curious to get reaction. But, a long time ago, it was a kind of a trick question internally, to my entire company. Who's in sales? Right. Mm-hmm. And the answer is everybody. Right. And so we've resurrected that. And the challenge that we had, years ago around this concept is like, well, here I am. We deploy a lot of kind of ERP experts, technical experts in projects. And, most of our folks are very senior, and they're like, this is great, Wayne. I just don't know how to talk about the other things that we do. Right. So now what has happened is as I've had one-on-one interviews internally and gotten feedback. And by the way, I encourage people to give me very direct feedback, negative as much as positive, because I really want to understand it. And I can filter it in this. But one of the consistent, exciting aspects for me is people are starting to say, it's like, oh, I now, with the signature solution, I know I'll use my terms, the box before me and the box after me, I can actually now talk about, hey, Hire Digital does more than just my box, one of my, the box that I fit in as part of the signature solution. And so that has been really encouraging. I will tell you that a couple of the CIOs that I've interacted with, one in particular was like, Wayne, are you worried about your intellectual property on this? And I'm like, no. I said, because this is unique to who we are as a company, and it really is designed. When you look at our 8.5 years of being in business, who's our perfect client, who hires us, what type of work, and why do they hire us? It distills it all down very perfectly. And so what then really got me excited, he got really quiet, and this one was a friend of mine. I'm like, okay, it's never a good sign when you're quiet. And he said, well, I'm thinking, I've done a screenshot of what you presented. We're still in draft mode, right? He's like, I'm going to present this to my cabinet next week as a roadmap of where we need to go. So that's all exciting. Your other question about, when is done, I feel like it was almost a trick question on your part, because I will tell you that it's always evolving. The market is evolving so dramatically that every company, especially with AI, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, but specifically education, you have to evolve. You have to be flexible, and how you're messaging to the market now. If you did the signature solution a year ago, I would say do it again, because in the world of AI, you really need to understand. Maybe you don't need to change much. Maybe you need to change a lot. But the idea is that you're going to have to evolve with the times.
Yeah, it was not a trick question. I just wanted to confirm that you and I were on the same page. That's it. We've got always people that are tuning in. And so if you feel comfortable, if you want to, feel free to put in the chat where you are, what's your company, your LinkedIn profile. Of course, if you have questions about the signature solution. I always say the signature solution is the top of the mountain for the Ed Sales Elevation experience. After that, it's downhill from here in terms of being able to reach out, start to target, start to message, start to really go all in on fresh leads. And Wayne and I are at that point, and we'll be working on that tomorrow when we meet individually. Most of the founders that we work with do not have a visibility problem. They do not have a product problem. They have an offer problem. And that's where the signature solution comes in. It's a clear visual roadmap that turns your expertise into a closable offer. That's what the signature solution is. And I hate to use this term, it is a game changer. It was a game changer for me, and I've been selling in this space since 2008, and it is the tool that I use. Some of the takeaways that I want people to have who are listening, and hey, John Greiner, thanks for joining. Always John in with us. Never know if the dude's in Georgia or Naples, Italy, but he makes it a point to join us. So thank you, John. The signature solution, when you get it right, it will help you to close more easily. Some of the takeaways. Your buyers probably aren't saying no. They're saying, I don't get it. And the signature solution makes sure that they get it. In fact, and Wayne, you experienced this before you were a client of mine, I walked you through the signature solution. And after we finished going through the signature solution, I said, before we move on, Wayne, I want to make sure you understand every single part of my signature solution. And 9 times out of 10, people say, I get it. Sometimes people want to ask a question. 9 times out of 10, they get it because I have shown them how I'm going to take them from 0 leads to a steady flow of leads. So do you feel like when you were presenting this, Wayne, to the folks that you were, when you asked them that question, did they get it?
Mm-hmm. They very much got it. And, for those that have not seen it, I'll repeat what Josh, you believe in the power of three, right? So there's effectively nine boxes. And so, I have a very skeptical group and audience that I engage with internally and externally. And every single person, each box totally made sense to them, and each step along the whole signature solution made a whole lot of sense. Now, a lot of their feedback really was kind of around the fringes, asking things like, well, how do you help, like with the promise? So for us, your signature solution is we're going to get you, from no leads to, steady leads, right? For us, it is, working with CIOs. If you take and embrace our signature solution, we're going to take you from siloed, disconnected, really inefficient, right, in the face of shrinking budgets, to one where you're going to be more efficient, more strategically aligned, and you're going to save money. And so there's a little bit of like, how's that possible, right? Mm-hmm. So I've gotten a lot of questions about how that truly can happen, right? And there's a lot of inefficiencies with how higher education works today. Part of that is by design historically. It's also emblematic of a very decentralized entity and its relationship, right? So I think one of the core things in particular for those that are listening that you bring to the table is that the signature solution in your approach, when you say it's focused on education, is true. Education is a relationship industry, and that has to be front and center to any strategy, messaging strategy, sales strategy that you have going forward. And so, for us, it is really about incorporating kind of that feedback of like, okay, Wayne, I get every box here. This makes a whole lot of sense. Really explain how are you saving me money? How's this happening? Right? Like, how are you making, and so we get into the organizational and enterprise capabilities around that. But at the end of the day, to what you've been advocating for is like the why. The why is, if you're disconnected and not aligned today, what is it going to be like when, AI has hit us already, but it's like that first wave of a tsunami. Like there's a lot more waves that are coming. Mm-hmm. And if you're not even ready if you're drowning with that first wave, you need to embrace this, because, how you're operating today, if it's ineffective, it's going to be even more ineffective going forward. And so the why for us really is, you have no choice. You have to take what you have and you got to make it work better for the world that is coming.
Absolutely. And a way to think about this is that the signature solution is your offer. And the confused mind doesn't buy. So if your offer is not clear, then people will not buy on the spot, and they probably won't buy even later. A signature solution isn't about slides. This is one thing I love, because I'm married to somebody from Deloitte. She loves slides. And I've got something that is one page that does the closing for me. It's version 17, by the way. So that's okay. We work on it and work on it and work on it. But it's not about my features. The framework is better than any features that I have. And the slide, the one page, is the roadmap that shows exactly how I deliver my results. And I'm going to talk about why in a little bit of a different way. When Wayne and I work on the signature solution, when I work on it with the 162 other clients we've had, the signature solution describes the why in each part of the journey, why we do what we do. It does not talk about the how. The reason it doesn't talk about the how we do what we do is because you then open yourself up to a nitpicking discussion with your perfect client, because they've probably done the majority of the things that you are going to do with them, but they've never done it your way. And when they do it your way, they're going to see the results. And that way is your signature solution. That way is your model, your method. And so the really cool thing is that Wayne has been doing this for decades. Most people I work with have been doing it for decades, but they have not taken the time to distill what you do into one slide. When you do that, and when you've got the clear offer, and then you've got the credibility that Wayne and the others bring from 2 decades worth of good work, that's a 1-2 punch that most people are then going to say, okay, I'm interested. I'm not saying they're going to sign, but they're going to say, I'm interested. So Wayne, when you put together and I'm ready to like fight here, not that I'm much of a boxer at all. When you put together the one punch of your credibility and the other punch of your offer, what happens?
I think a lot of clarity. I think a lot of, again, we have not rolled it out and we have not launched it yet, but, it's already demonstrating internal alignment, clarity. It's impacting our, broad enterprise-wide messaging. It's aligned. Again, everyone now feels like I just rolled it out last Friday to the broad internal team. And the feedback I've gotten and what I witnessed is a lot more energy level has gone up internally. People are excited, right? This has been, for those that are listening that have been in the education space in the United States, especially higher education, but even K-12. I mean, it's been a tough year, right? Mm-hmm. It's been a challenging year and an unprecedented year, and so everyone's had to absorb the shock of all the changes that are happening. I mean, in the United States, the Department of Education is being dismantled and disbanded, right? And that has just profound impacts to everyone, right? And so, part of who we've always been is, a partner higher ed can trust, whether it's the president, CIO, board. We really own their problem. And I think the signature solution now for us, what I'm starting to see is it really starts to, and married with kind of a lot of our thought leadership pieces. Like we've been a company that's been really good at generating a lot of articles and a lot of insights around this topic, right? But with that, before the signature solution, there's been a lot of confusion, right? About, okay, what exactly does higher digital specialize in? And our answer was like, well, change, digital transformation. And people are like, well, what the hell does that mean exactly? I need an ERP resource. I need a database administrator, or I need a change management expert. Explain this. And so now, what I feel like, and I don't know how this will come across, but when we launch this, it feels like this won't be something new we invented, in many ways. And I think this is kind of what you're getting at. But it's the clearest articulation yet of the work we've been doing for years. And that's what really excites me. It's the best story. Our best story is finally being told in the simplest way that really resonates, right? And so when you marry all this activity for 8.5 years on LinkedIn, we've made LinkedIn kind of a key, engagement platform for us. But a lot of this is just sharing about our thought leaders, what's going on, our observations, this type of stuff. And then you marry it with a very simple kind of roadmap that captures our higher digital's unique value prop to the industry and built upon all these years of experience. It's like, it's manna from heaven. Like it's now, as a music, a hacking kind of musician, it's like harmony, like in all, across the board. So I'm really excited to kind of roll this out and see where this goes, and see what kind of, commercial and public reaction that we get. But the timing is perfect for us. We're entering, as I think you said in one of your clips, we're entering kind of the fall sales season, right? And so having this place rolled out in 2 weeks, all the messaging, all the content, everything that we're going to be bringing to all the conferences that I will be personally attending, most of them. It's exciting. It feels harmonious for the first time in our company's history.
That's amazing. You're hearing from two people who really do enjoy selling. So the signature solution has been, I don't know, my mind goes to a place like it's like a cartoon, like they're an amazing pair of sneakers and like we just step into them and they lace themselves up. That being said, for the majority of the people that I work with and that Wayne is surrounded by in his cohort for the Ed Sales Elevation experience, they don't think this way. They don't feel this way. They're not very interested in sales, and it's not something that they really want to do long term. But they understand the value of founder-led sales to begin to put together a process that can be given to an actual salesperson who loves sales. But there's a very different story to be told of bringing in a salesperson when you have no plan for sales, bringing in a salesperson when you have a plan that is proven. Most salespeople believe in themselves, so they're going to say, you don't have a plan? I'll create it for you. Well, 6, 8, 12 months later, they're still trying to figure it out. And I'm not blaming them. It takes that much time. But when you bring somebody in and you have a document, a tool like a signature solution, you explain this is how we sell and this is proven, they can hit the ground running. Everybody's signature solution is unique. And that's the beauty of it. But you, the founder, either need to figure it out or need to be there as well. There is some homework that people can do to see kind of where their offer is. First of all, you can audit your own offer. Can a buyer explain what you do and how you do it in one sentence? Try and build your own signature solution. My signature solution out there for everybody to see. Wayne will be showing his in the next couple of weeks. If you want mine, reach out to me, jc@joshchernokoff.com or LinkedIn. I will share with you my signature solution. It is readily available. I am more than happy to give it to people. When you have your signature solution, the goal is to position yourself as an authority with an offer, not to pitch, because we literally want people to lean in and, to Wayne's point, kind of say, tell me more. You can do what? And that's what you start to see on people's faces when you say, I can take you from confusion to clarity on this subject. And let me show you why we're going to do what we do. Test it in real conversations. And then I'm going to pause here because that is where Wayne has done what a lot of people don't do, which is expose himself and say, go ahead, tell me what the problems are. Most people will create a signature solution, but then they don't take it out for a test drive. You, Wayne, have taken it out for a test drive so you can notice where your prospects nod, where they pause, or maybe where they ask questions. How did you find those people that you showed the signature solution to, and what was kind of your method of rolling it out to them?
Yeah, so great question. So, I start with my network, right? Again, I'm gonna come back to a theme. This is education, whether it's higher ed or K-12, is a relationship industry. And so everybody has a network, right? And so you got to kind of start there. And, I like to pick people that I will trust will be, will pin me down, won't let me escape, won't let me talk my way out of it, and as part of the methodology, I scheduled roughly 2 to 3 a week. And now we're in the AI world, so I record all of them. There's a transcript to that. Would run some of the dialogue through AI, ChatGPT, just to provide some insights on this. But typically, I would also just take notes, right? Some of the key things that I observed, or key feedback, or key questions. And each interview, or between each interview, I would make some modifications. I would run through my filter of like, oh, that was really good. That made a whole lot of sense. So there's a blend of fearlessness, right? But also you have to be the expert, right? You can't just be like, take everyone's feedback and just implement it, right? Like you got to be like, okay, let me really think through this. And I think, this is the signature solution, but one of the core tenets to this is really identifying who your perfect client is, right? And really understanding that perfect client. And I know that you have other episodes on that kind of stuff, but that's a critical clarification point, right? Because as you modify the signature solution, as you get this feedback, as you work through it, you always got to make sure that that perfect client is in the forefront of your mind. And that you're really speaking to that particular person. And so each iteration, I've gotten better and better, clearer on it. And now that there's a ripple effect. So, how do we modify our website, to support the signature solution and the offers associated with it? How are we going to roll this out? 40% of our business is out of the UK. The rest of it is in the United States for right now. So we're a global company. It has to make sense, right? So one of the things that I did is, probably before most, even before my co-founder started to see the signature solution, I shared it with the UK team. It's like, okay, guys, here's a draft. Just keep it you and me. Like, let's work our way through this, but give me your views from the UK perspective. And they quickly got on board. And that started to help, right? So you got to look at it through a lot of different angles, but keep the perfect client in the kind of the forefront of your mind. But understand that it's an iterative process. I naively, I remember the first time I drafted it for you. My first draft of our signature solution, I sent it to Josh. I'm like, I got it nailed. Yeah. This problem, right? Boy, how naive I was at that point. But it took me an enormous amount of effort just to get it to that point. And my feeling after that was like, oh, man, I spent all this time and I'm still missed the mark. But I will tell you, once you get to that first construction of it, the iteration after that speeds up. It's less painless. It speeds up from there.
Yeah, the signature solution, and when we're working through it in the cohort, I just tell people, I'm like, I don't care if you use a napkin, piece of paper, use your Remarkable, use Canva, use whatever you want, but you got to start it.
Yep.
Once people start it, and once you begin to have some clarity around it, then I encourage them, start presenting it. And the reason I asked you, Wayne, is because I do know that you have essentially gave yourself data-driven feedback, by recording the conversations. You're able to look back at the nods, you're able to look back at the questions to be able to present better the next time and better the next time. I presented my signature solution 252 times last year in 2024. I like to think of the signature solution when I'm going to sleep, because I can close my eyes and I can move the blocks around, and I can say, okay, talk about block number 9. Now talk about block number 4. Let's go to number 6. That's how well you need to know your signature solution.
Yep.
And I know you're going down that path. You're still open and will always be open to learning, but you have to just get out there with it. And there's no need to redesign it or change a box or an icon. You got to just get out there with it. The signature solution should turn into the main tool you use in sales. That's what it's done for me. I believe that is what it will do for Wayne. John, good to have you. Not sure again if you're stateside or in Italy. Enjoy it nonetheless. When we've got the signature solution and you've begun to test it and you begin to use it as your sales engine, what happens is, and I'll go to a metaphor here that Wayne has heard quite often and I know resonates, is that it's like swinging the best golf club you have in your bag. It's that club that if you're a golfer, you can pull it out and it's going to just look beautiful. And as you get more comfortable with the signature solution, that's the feeling you should have, because you're going to get closer to the pin, closer to the pin, closer to the pin. And that's golf terms. But what I mean, as Wayne knows, is you're going to get closer to the hole, closer to the hole, closer to the hole. And eventually hit a hole in one. Hole in one, in terms of this, is delivering the signature solution, saying to somebody, is it clear how I can help you? And they say, yeah, what are we waiting for? That's a hole in one. That's a true hole in one from the signature solution. Because at that point, you have demonstrated your credibility and you have demonstrated the power of your offer and the transformation that can occur. Wayne, do you feel like, as you've taken your lumps and hit back, that the signature solution can become that for you?
Very much so. This is the best, as I mentioned, it's the clearest articulation yet of the work that we've been doing. Everything that we've been doing for 8.5 years. I use the metaphor of like we've sold quilt patches.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're selling a quilt, right? And people are like, I don't need this patch. It's a funny design on this. But now we're selling the quilt, and they're like, ooh, I need a blanket, right? I need something nice to put over me. So, it's cohesive. Right. Again, part of this is I haven't launched it externally yet, but the internal, and then the small group of CIOs that I've interviewed have been very encouraging about, like, wow, this now really makes sense. And I can see now, how I can move from these boxes that we've been offering. The first 2 boxes are offerings that we've had for a long time.
Right. Yeah. And
they're quick and easy, and they're important building blocks. But ultimately now we can say, okay, here's how all this fits together, and for you as an institution. So I absolutely think it's going to be a centerpiece. My expectation is that we're going to continue to evolve. Like, look, being in education and being a specialist in change, well, as a cobbler, our kids are going to have shoes, and so I want to make sure that everybody understands, we have to be good at change internally as a company if we're going to specialize in change in higher education.
Not surprising, our friend Bill Madigan, who's in our cohort, this most recent cohort, chimed in right as we went into the golf discussion. He said, nice work, men. He just wants to play some golf. Wayne, I've never heard the signature solution described that way, but it's a perfect articulation. If you think of the signature solution as a blanket, somebody who their biggest challenge is that they want to be warm, you hand them a full blanket or a quilt.
That's right.
And that's their biggest problem at that moment. But when you solve that problem of them being cold with your quilt, you also solve other problems as well for them. They can probably relax. They can be a little more clear. They can enjoy themselves. But first things first, make me warm. And when you identify your perfect client, when you identify their biggest problem, and then you give them this full quilt, they're going to listen. Again, I'm not going to say that they're going to sign, that contract immediately, but at least they're going to listen. So you have really embraced the signature solution and all of its ifs, ands, or buts that come along with the signature solution. That's why I had you on the show. We're going to have to check back with you and do an update as you roll it out. You will be successful because you are open to the bumps and the bruises that are going to come along with it. It will become for you what it has become for me. And so I'm really excited for you. And at some point, we'll get on the golf course. We'll bring Bill, and we'll try and get closer and closer to that hole. I'll tell you what, my signature solution game is 10 times better than my golf game. I would imagine your golf game is pretty darn good.
No, I'm a Caddyshack golfer is the way I describe it. You know, call me Mr. Double Bogey.
Okay. Well, we'll see what Bill's is. But then we can all use our signature solutions that we're all crafting right now and getting better at. So anybody who is signature solution curious, please reach out to me or reach out to Wayne. In terms of reaching me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me via email. You can find me here every Thursday, 1 o'clock. In terms of reaching Wayne, what's the best way, Wayne?
Best way is on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and let's connect via that direction.
Yeah, cool. Nice and easy. Bill, see, again, all he's talking about is golf right now. You know, he was just waiting for the golf references to hop in. But you can see, everybody I think can see that we've created a really wonderful community here in the Ed Sales Elevation Experience of education founders all across the world. Because again, I'm not sure if John is in Naples, Italy, or in Atlanta, and Bill's up in New York. Wayne is across the ocean in Virginia, and I'm in Washington, D.C. And then we've got people joining from literally all across the world. So hopefully you guys got a really clear understanding of the value, the transformational opportunity that occurs when you have a signature solution. If you have more questions on it, let me know or reach out to Wayne via LinkedIn. I appreciate everybody that joined us, especially Wayne. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being vulnerable and being honest with everybody about the signature solution and your experience.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
This was fun.
Awesome. Thank you. See y'all. See you next week.